Charlie Kirk, the founder of Turning Point USA, a conservative activist and a highly polarizing voice in American politics, was shot dead during a campus event at Utah Valley University, which actually shook America's political world. He was doing what he often did, standing on stage in front of a large crowd, debating students in his prove me wrong format. It was supposed to be another day of sharp exchanges, heated arguments, and free speech in action. Instead, it ended in bloodshed, with Kirk killed by a sniper's bullet fired from a nearby rooftop. The moment the shot rang out, panic spread across the crowd of nearly 3,000 people. Witnesses described chaos and fear. As security rushed in, students ducked, and law enforcement scrambled to respond. Within hours, Kirk was confirmed dead, and the nation had lost one of its most divisive yet influential conservative voices. The details of the attack came quickly. Investigators say the shooter positioned himself on the roof of a building near the event, fired once, and then escaped by leaping from the roof into nearby woods. In his flight, he left behind critical clues: a high-powered bolt-action rifle, shoe prints, palm prints, even forearm imprints in the dirt. Authorities flooded the area with officers and drones, canvassing neighborhoods, searching yards and homes, even collecting surveillance footage from dozens of businesses. A person of interest was identified in video footage, but so far, no one has been arrested. Utah officials immediately called the killing what many feared it was: a political assassination. Governor Spencer Cox didn't mince words. He vowed to prosecute the case to the fullest extent of the law, promising to seek the death penalty when the shooter is caught. Over 7,000 tips have poured into hotlines. Still, the suspect remains at large. The investigation is ongoing, but the sense of unease lingers. In Washington, reaction was swift and emotional. President Donald Trump, standing at the White House, condemned the killing as a heinous assassination. He went further, promising to posthumously award Charlie Kirk the Presidential Medal of Freedom, America's highest civilian honor. From the opposite side of the political aisle, Democratic leaders like Chuck Schumer, Hakeem Jeffries, and Nancy Pelosi all issued statements. They emphasized unity, condemned political violence, and urged Americans not to let hate drive them deeper apart. For a moment, it seemed as if leaders across the spectrum were aligned in grief and outrage. But beneath the surface, the blame game began. Trump accused the radical left of fostering a culture that demonized Kirk and others like him, arguing that dangerous rhetoric leads inevitably to violence. Conservative commentators echoed that line, warning that free speech itself is under attack. Meanwhile, many liberals urged caution, arguing that it was reckless to assign motive before the facts were clear. Social media platforms, as always, exploded with anger, conspiracy theories, and partisan fire. In the hours after Kirk's death, America's divisions seemed to harden even more. The question looming over all of this is not just who killed Charlie Kirk, but why? Was this the act of a lone wolf with a personal grudge? Or was it a targeted strike by someone radicalized against Kirk's brand of conservatism? The answer matters, not just for justice, but for what it means about the state of America's democracy. Because this killing wasn't just about one man. It hit at the heart of some of the nation's deepest anxieties. Free speech in America has always been messy, contentious, and sometimes painful. But what happens when speaking publicly becomes a life or death risk? If activists, politicians, or commentators, whether conservative or liberal, cannot feel safe in front of a crowd, what happens to the very idea of open debate? This also raises troubling questions about political rhetoric. The United States has seen an escalation in harsh language, with both sides portraying their opponents as existential threats to the nation. When words escalate into dehumanization, when anger becomes normalized, it creates a climate where violence feels like the next step. Charlie Kirk's assassination is a brutal reminder of where unchecked polarization can lead. Security is another piece of the puzzle. If Kirk, a figure who traveled with security, could be killed in broad daylight during a university event, it suggests that even the most guarded environments are vulnerable. Universities, rallies, and town halls, Places where Americans traditionally engage in civic debate may now face increased restrictions, metal detectors, or armed patrols. The fear is that democracy becomes less open, less accessible, because of the risk of violence. And then there is symbolism. Turning Point USA called Kirk America's greatest martyr to the freedom of speech he so adored. For his supporters, his death will not just be seen as a tragedy, it will be remembered as martyrdom, as proof that their cause is under siege. Martyrdom has power. It galvanizes movements. It hardens divisions. It transforms a man into a symbol. The ripple effects of this narrative are only beginning. To understand the gravity of this moment, it helps to look back. America has experienced assassinations before: Abraham Lincoln, John F. Kennedy, Martin Luther King Jr., Robert Kennedy. Each shook the nation to its core, leaving scars that linger to this day. But in modern times, such killings have been rare. Which is why Kirk's murder feels like such a jolt. It belongs to a darker era of American history, yet here it is, unfolding in 2025. Globally, this echoes patterns seen elsewhere. In recent years, the world has witnessed the assassination of journalists, political leaders, and public intellectuals in places like Japan, Britain, Pakistan, and Turkey. Political violence is not unique to the United States, but for a country that positions itself as a champion of free speech and democratic discourse, this moment sends a chilling message to the world. Still, many unknowns remain. Investigators don't yet know who pulled the trigger, or what drove them to act. Was this an ideological mission? Was it personal? Or was it a case of someone who simply wanted notoriety? The motive will determine how this story is ultimately remembered, and how dangerous the path ahead may be. What is clear is that this assassination will have consequences. Legal consequences, as Utah officials push for the death penalty. Political consequences, as parties weaponize the tragedy to score points or rally supporters. Social consequences, as universities and communities rethink how to balance openness with security. And cultural consequences, as Americans ask themselves what kind of country they are becoming. Charlie Kirk's death leaves behind questions bigger than one man. Can a society remain democratic if its voices, whether beloved or hated, must speak under the constant shadow of violence? What responsibility do leaders, media outlets, and influencers bear when their words may inspire or provoke? And perhaps most urgently, will this moment become a turning point toward reflection and unity, or another step down the path of division and distrust? The world is watching how America responds. Justice must come swiftly. But beyond justice, America must decide what lessons it takes from this tragedy. Because a democracy where political violence is normalized is a democracy in peril. And every citizen, left or right, has a stake in making sure this does not become the new normal. Charlie Kirk is gone, but the debate his death sparks has only just begun. Subscribe for next story.